Welcome to the Hope Natural Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Erin Ellis, your host. On this show, we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Leigh is an author and holistic health expert with almost 30 years of experience working with clients. He cured his own severe cystic acne in the year 2000 through a combination of various teachers, the knowledge he gained, and personal experience, sparking his passion for health and wellness. Leigh has studied various disciplines, including holistic dermatology, nutrition, and functional medicine, providing a holistic approach to his clients that has proven effective where other methods have failed. He also authored multiple books on acne, fitness, yoga, and sports injuries, as well as creating online coaching programs for health professionals and acne sufferers. I am super excited to have him here today to talk more about adult acne in general, and more about skin health. So welcome to the show, Leigh.
Thanks for having me, Erin. It's great to be here.
He is across the pond in the UK, as you can tell by his accent. So again, very excited for this conversation. I think it's evening time where you are, so I appreciate your time being here. But let's talk a little bit more about really how you got into what you're doing now, your struggle with cystic acne, and how all that came about. Because, like most everyone that goes into some health profession, it's usually from their own personal journey. So tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, my acne journey actually started in 1982 when I was 13. And, my mother took me to the local doctor. He gave me an acne cream and a cleanser, and he said, "Yeah, this will be the answer to all your problems." And I used the cream and the cleanser. It didn't do anything apart from make my skin even more red, and it made it dry, it made it more oily, and just made it worse. And then after about, I can't remember exactly, maybe 6 weeks, I went back. My mum said, "Look, it's not working. What can we do?" And he said, "I know what. I'll give you this antibiotic and it will clear your acne. That'll be the end of it." So I thought, great. So I started using the antibiotic, and 6 weeks later, my skin was clear. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then the next week, it came back, and it came back a lot worse. And this continued for the next 18 years. And, for me, it was bad enough how I looked, but it's the effect it has on your mental health, your self-esteem, your confidence. You can become very anxious because, you're always worried about how you're going to look the next day, or, you've got a big event coming up. It really damages your mental health. So the reason I got into health and wellness was not actually for that reason. So I originally got into health and wellness through the fitness arena, but it was through that I found the answer to my acne. So I was at a conference in the UK at a very, very prestigious university that is particularly around sports science. But there was an American guy from California, and he was doing a lecture, and he starts talking about hormones and food intolerances, and how food affects your hormones, and how food intolerances and hormones can cause skin conditions like acne. Now I'm sitting there and these alarm bells are going off because I'd never heard anyone speak like this before. And the interesting thing was, my doctor had been asked by me or my mother on multiple occasions, is my acne being caused by something I'm eating? And every time the doctor would say, no, acne's got absolutely nothing to do with diet whatsoever. So I came back from this conference, and that week I went to see this guy, and he ran a number of tests on me. And he said, the first thing, you've got to stop taking those antibiotics. They're not doing you any good. I've been on them for 18 years at this point.
Jeez.
And my first thought was, well, if I stop taking them, my acne's going to get even worse, right? And he said, look, you've got a candida infection, so like a fungal overgrowth. And he said, and you're also sensitive to all these foods. And there was this long list of foods. So he said, right, these are the foods that you can eat. And I want you to take these herbs to help you clear the fungus from your body. So me being the kind of person I am, I went home, cleared all of my kitchen cupboards, just threw everything out. Went to the supermarket that day, restocked, and I followed the plan 100% because I was so determined to get rid of my acne. 2 weeks later, my skin was clear, and it's been that way ever since. Right?
I love that.
So the guy from California is a guy called Paul Chek, and he's probably been the most influential person in the world of fitness in the last 30, maybe 40 years. If you know what a Swiss ball is, it's down to him. If you know what a cable machine is, it's down to him. If you've heard of the core, it's down to him. Functional training, all these things, he's a real pioneer. So I studied with him for 5.5 years in the early 2000s, not long after that initial conference that he presented at. So I studied his system, which includes nutrition, holistic lifestyle coaching. But then through that training, I also found out about functional medicine. So then I studied functional medicine. And it was once I became a functional medicine practitioner, I thought, wow, I've really got the tools to help other people now that have been or are going through the same issue that I went through for 18 years. And I thought, I really need to help these people. So that was really the start and the spark and the motivation for me to help other people.
Gosh, I love that. It's amazing. You are what you eat. And look what happened.
Absolutely.
So this is like a general question, and you know what caused your acne, but is there what should we look at, or what causes acne in general? Because I know there's more than, it's more than just what you eat. It could be hormonal and obviously medication induced, things like that. So what causes it in general? What is the mechanism behind it?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is every single person's cause is slightly different. Mm-hmm. So that's important to understand. Yep. There's no one size fits all approach that's going to help everyone. But there is a fundamental mechanism that's pretty much well agreed upon. There's a few people that slightly disagree. And I don't disagree with their theories either. I think there's just more than one mechanism. But the main understanding is that there's an increase in sebum. So sebum is the oil that's secreted from sebaceous glands that are in the hair follicles. So they moisturize the skin and the hair. So we have microbes that live all over our skin, head to toe, as we do in our gastrointestinal tracts. The only difference being the microbes that live on our skin, they have no food to live off. Obviously, the microbes in our gastrointestinal system, they feed off of our food. So the microbes on our skin feed off of the oil on the skin, but also, so that's the fats in the oil, but they also eat the amino acids or proteins from the skin cells. So when there's an excessive amount of sebum released by the sebaceous glands, now you've got excess oil. Now, the same things that stimulate the sebum can also stimulate excessive skin cell production. So if you've got a hair follicle and it's full of excess oil and skin cells, now the microbes that live on the skin, it's party time. So they're eating the oil and the skin. Now they can proliferate. Now it becomes an overgrowth. So then what happens? Well, the immune system starts to attack these microbes, and that creates inflammation. What does inflammation create? Swelling, hotness, red, and in this case, itching. Okay, so you've got the excess sebum, you've got excess skin, you've got the excess bacteria, and you've got inflammation. That is really what causes acne. Now, the $64,000 question is, what causes the excess sebum and what causes the excess skin production? And you've already said the word hormones, but then the question is, what causes the hormone imbalance? And a lot of the time it comes back to what do we eat. So there are certain foods that stimulate the hormones that cause the excess sebum and the excess skin cell production. So these foods, you can kind of break them down, predominantly what we would call high glycemic foods, which basically means foods which will cause your blood sugar to raise very quickly. Okay, that's what we call high glycemic food. So anything very sugary, You think soda drinks, you think, desserts are quite often high in sugar. But things also made from white flour are also very high glycemic generally. So a lot of your kind of processed foods are likely to have high glycemic ingredients. Another one is dairy. So dairy, if you think what is dairy for? Well, dairy is there to stimulate growth in baby mammals. That's its job. So it just so happens that dairy also stimulates the sebaceous glands, and it also stimulates skin cell production. And then the other thing that plays a role in acne for a slightly different reason is things like vegetable oils and seed oils, because they're very inflammatory. So anything that causes inflammation is likely to increase the likelihood of acne as well. So you've got sugary foods, you've got dairy, and you've got vegetable and seed oils. So they're the key ones. Now, the other thing to mention as well, when we talk about hormones, things like how much stress you're under, how much rest and recovery are you getting, how good is your sleep, what time are you sleeping, they all affect the hormonal system as well. And just to add to that, there's another thing to add, and that is our gut microbiome. So our gut microbiome plays so much of a role in everything we do. Okay, we have more microbes in our body than we do human cells. Okay, some people estimate it's actually a 10-to-1 ratio, and from a DNA point of view, it's even higher than that. We've got way more microbe DNA than we have human DNA. So our microbes in our gut play so much of a role in lots of things. They produce hormones, as an example. So the other thing that our gut plays a role in is if our gut lining is what we call leaky, things in the gut can get into the bloodstream. That is generally toxic, which causes an inflammatory response. So there's so many different things going on as well. And there's an issue with toxins. So toxins also become a problem. Predominantly, and there's a number of reasons, but predominantly because our liver has so many roles to play in the body. Now, one of them is to help detoxification. Now, if the liver is trying to do all these things at one time, but there's a load of toxins in the body, one of the things that the liver needs to do, it metabolizes hormones. And if it's too busy trying to deal with the toxins, rather than clear the hormones out of the body, it recirculates them. And that's another thing that can cause a hormone imbalance. So that's a very quick overview of the causes of acne.
Oh, yeah, but it makes sense. And it could be a combination of all of those things, too.
And it normally is.
Yep. And so that's why functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, we're looking at the body as a whole, and we're addressing all of those areas, because one thing might be leading to another and, driving this or compensating here. So it's super important to look at all aspects. And I would say adult acne is something I see commonly in practice. And when patients come to me and they have acne issues, they usually didn't have it before. So it was something that obviously happened when they are in their adult years, and it's not something that they've had their entire life. So I'm assuming we probably already kind of answered this question, but if you were to answer the question, why is adult acne even a thing? Does it go back to what we just discussed in those causes?
Yeah, but I can add to that, actually, because what's quite interesting is that teenage acne is considered normal, right? Everyone's, oh, you got acne, well, you're a teenager, that's what happens. But when we've studied hunter-gatherers, their teenagers don't get acne. Why would that be? Well, because they're eating a natural diet. They're living in a natural environment. They're living in accordance with sunrise and sundown. So when the sun goes down, they go to sleep. When the sun comes up, they wake up. So they've got far less toxins in the body. They've got much more balanced hormonal system. They're probably not eating high glycemic foods. They're probably not eating dairy once they're, of a certain age. They're almost certainly not, well, they're definitely not eating seed oils and vegetable oils. So some of the common reasons why I see people who have never had acne get it for the first time in adult life there's two common ones that I tend to see. Women coming off birth control pills. That tends to be a real big trigger. And the other one is heavy metal toxicity.
Are you going to go into why post-pill? Like, how does that?
I can do.
Yeah. So can you tell a little bit about why you see post-pill acne, and then why heavy metals cause acne?
Yeah. So if you think, what is the birth control pill doing? It's putting exogenous hormones into the body. Now, our body works on a system of checks and balances and feedback loops. So if you're taking exogenous hormones, basically hormones from outside of the body, your body's own internal system says, well, I don't need to produce that. I'm going to shut that down now. So when a woman stops taking it, all of a sudden the body's like, wow, I need to start producing all of these hormones, and it produces way too much. So, when you produce excess estrogen, as one example, that is another hormone that can stimulate the sebaceous glands. So it can take, a fair bit of work for a woman when they come off of the birth control pill to get them back to normal. And I know a lot of medical doctors tend to say, well, your body's just going to balance itself out naturally. Well, it might do, but it probably will take a much longer time than someone's willing to, for that to happen. So that's one. Now, the one thing I've seen quite a lot in particular is mercury toxicity. And there's one particular lady that really stands out. She came to see me at age 27, and she'd never really eaten a good diet ever in her life. So she just, she described herself as someone, she can eat whatever she wants and she gets away with it. So, she had, amazing figure, her skin was amazing. But at age 27 and 6 months before her wedding, her skin broke out pretty bad. So she came to see me, and we started making changes to her diet, lowering the high glycemic foods. She didn't really have much dairy anyway. Cut down the seed oils. It got a little bit better, but not much. So then we tested her gut microbiome. There was a little bit of dysbiosis, but not too bad. We worked a little bit on that, got a little bit better. And now we're like 4 months out, and she's starting to panic. She's like, oh my God, I don't want to look like this on my wedding day. And I said, okay, let's just test you for heavy metals, and let's see what comes up there. And we ran a test, and her mercury was literally off the scale. And she said to me, what could potentially cause that? And I said, well, the most common reason is people that eat a lot of tuna fish, because tuna contains, mercury. And she looked at me and she stopped and she said, I've been eating tuna sandwiches for lunch every day for the last 10 years.
Wow.
So obviously she stopped eating the tuna sandwiches, and I just suggested she take liposomal glutathione to help get the mercury out of the body. And within about 4 weeks, her skin was just amazing again, absolutely amazing. So there are a couple of examples. The other thing I'd like to say as well, why I think we get acne. Now, the reason we get it on our face, I had it on my chest and on my upper back as well. Those regions of the skin are known as the sebaceous region. It's the most oily parts of the skin. So that's why we get acne in that place. But the reason we get acne, I think, is a blessing. Now, anyone going through acne is going to hate me for saying that, because it's horrible, and I know it's horrible. But the reason it's a blessing is because for me, acne is an inside job. What I mean by that is there's imbalances on the inside of the body that's being shown to you through your skin. So it's like having an engine warning light on your dashboard of your car. Now, if you see the engine warning light, what's that telling you? There's something wrong with the engine. So what do? You take it to the mechanic. The mechanic fixes the engine. When you get back in the car, there's no longer the light on the dashboard. But what I try and get across to people who try to treat their acne with topical creams and pharmaceuticals in the analogy, they're taking a piece of black tape and covering over the engine warning light.
Mm-hmm.
And what will happen if you did that in the real world? If you just covered over the light with a piece of tape, the engine isn't going to be getting fixed, and it's going to be getting worse. And at some point, it's going to probably blow up, right? Or it's going to be a terminal problem if you don't get it fixed. Well, in the acne situation, if you don't treat the acne at the root cause level, then the likelihood is you're going to have a much more serious, potentially life-threatening illness 10, 20, 30 years down the line. So acne is giving you an opportunity to balance out your internal systems now. And the fact that it looks, listen, it looks pretty ugly. I hated the way I looked. I was pretty ugly when my face was really bad, right? So that gives you the motivation to actually do something about it. I was speaking at a conference this weekend about it, and I was trying to say, so one of the questions was, what about these people that they can eat anything and they can treat their body like a trash can and they don't get acne? And one of the answers is it might just be they don't have as good a warning system as you, right? So in one way, you might look at that as a blessing, because you get acne now, you treat that at the root cause level, and you can live the rest of your life in really good health. Someone who's eating all the junk food and probably drinking alcohol and whatever else, they don't have the warning sign, they don't get acne, but 20, 30 years down the line, they might get an illness that's life-threatening. So in that way, as horrible as it is, acne, I think, is a blessing.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. It's a sign that there's something off, because I want to go back to what you said earlier about, acne. Adult acne isn't normal, but teenage acne is. So can you talk a little bit about why teenage acne is? And, to an extent, I agree with that. Like, I think a little bit is, but we should outgrow it. But why is that considered normal?
Well, no, I was saying I disagree with that. I don't think it is normal.
That's what I thought. Yeah. But they say it's normal.
Considered normal.
Right.
It's considered normal. Now, obviously, one of the reasons why teenagers get acne was obviously as you go through puberty, especially testosterone is increased, which does increase the likelihood of acne. But when you look at it as well, in what decade of your life do you think you probably eat the worst diet? It's probably in your teenage years, right? It certainly was for me, So again, that's why I was kind of saying, when you look at hunter-gatherer teenagers, there's no sign of acne at all. So it's not a teenage problem. I think it's a Western society problem.
Yeah,
Western lifestyle problem.
Absolutely. So if someone's listening to this and struggles with acne, do you have any statistics, like how many adults struggle with acne?
Yeah, so I can give you the whole spectrum. So adolescents, 85% of adolescents suffer from acne. So I'm talking about Western world. Over 25s, it's between 40 and 55% suffer from acne. Over 45s, it starts to split a bit more. So it's 12% of women and 3% of men over 45 years old. So it's very common when you look at those figures. That's very, very common. And another thing we also find is sometimes women start to get acne as well when they go through menopause. Again, you're getting that imbalance in hormones.
But also it could be what we just talked about, a compounded effect. They didn't get the warning signs or their signals, the check engine lights in the past. And so now it's just kind of catching up to them, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah, could be, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, your symptoms, any symptom that you have is a message that something is off. Symptoms aren't normal, but they can also be that check engine light. Like, hey, I need to figure out why is this happening, and not do a Band-Aid approach, because like you're a prime example, it doesn't fix anything. Yeah. So since probably most of the listeners are in that 25 and up, 25 to 45 age range, which is 40 to 50% of will struggle with acne. So what are some natural solutions that you can recommend for someone that has adult acne?
Yeah, I mean, the first place I tend to get people to start is actually in their mindset. Because if you're going to make lifestyle change, for most people, it's a challenge. Most people find change uncomfortable. So I start with people's mindset, and I could talk for hours just on that alone. But what I would say is, be very clear on your why. Why do you want clear skin? What is that going to bring to you? How are you going to benefit from that? How is your life going to be better? And have that written down somewhere. That's the first thing, because when you come across something that is quite challenging to you, if you don't know your why, it's very easy just to give up and say, oh, I can't do this anymore. But if you've always got in the back of your mind, it could be, I'm going to socialize more, I'm going to see friends more, or whatever it might be, then that's going to motivate you to continue doing the things that you need to do. Because, I'm sure you've come across the same thing. In my career, the biggest challenge for most people is not getting the information they need, it's actually putting it into practice. So getting your mindset right for me is the most important thing. Once that's in place, then for me, the most important thing is diet. Diet just affects so many different things. So again, replacing those high glycemic foods, and there are plenty of fruits that have got sugar in that can be low glycemic. And, I always suggest to people not to eliminate foods from your diet, but to replace foods with something else, because then it doesn't feel like you're missing out on something. Obviously, dairy needs to be avoided. And then obviously the vegetable oils and the seed oils. So buying foods of one ingredient, right? An apple, it's one ingredient. Chicken, it's one ingredient. Oregano, or oregano, as you call it, it's one ingredient.
I love that. Oh my gosh, oregano. Is that how you say it in the UK?
We say oregano. Yeah.
Oh, how funny.
Side note. We say aluminium as well.
What is it?
Instead of aluminum, we say aluminium.
Oh, aluminium. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
There's an extra letter in.
Okay, so no oregano, no aluminium, obviously, for the heavy metals.
Well, no, you can have oregano. Basically, what I was saying was, it's better to buy things fresh,
one ingredient,
buy real food, rather than buying things in boxes and jars that have already been pre-made. Then you know exactly what it is that you're getting.
Yep.
And yes, it takes more time to prepare your own food, but that's why it's important to understand your why first.
Yeah.
And why absolutely. It's so important for you to take some time out to prep your own food.
Oh, that's really good advice. And all of that is very simple solutions. It's not, you don't have to spend a lot of money doing that. It's all, you're spending money on food, so just make it a little cleaner. Like you said, you don't need to eliminate things necessarily besides maybe dairy, but there's other alternatives to that and ways that you can just adjust what you're already eating. And I think it goes back to awareness. A lot of times we're just not aware of the things that we're putting in our body because it's just a habit, or we think it's good for us. But then when we really dive into it, it's like, maybe this is driving some inflammation. Maybe this is not helping my acne. So great advice. Well, Leigh, we could probably talk about acne forever. I'm sure you could too, but we'll wrap it up with one question I ask all my podcast guests. What would be your best or favorite health tip that you can share with the audience?
I guess I've alluded to it slightly already, but I'm going to say it in a slightly different way. The most important thing is to be very clear on what makes you happy.
I love that.
Because that is how you find your why. Without a destination, how do you know which direction to go in? And if you can focus as much time as possible to doing things in your life that make you happy, and trying to do less of the things that don't make you happy, at the end of the day, isn't life about creating happiness for yourself and others?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So everybody really think about what makes you happy and start there. And that goes back to your mindset, which was your number one Your number one tip for that. So awesome. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate your time sharing all of this information. Leigh has a book called Eliminating Adult Acne for Good, and he has a coaching program, Eliminate Adult Acne. We will make sure that we include those links in the show notes. But again, Leigh, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.